All right, you are in the lounge. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and joining me is the legendary voice actress Stephanie Nadolny. You've probably heard her before, Goku Mini with Daima right now, Dragon Ball Daima, and also Kid Goku from the OG Dragon Ball series GT, and of course Gohan and Teen Gohan. Stephanie, welcome in. Happy to have
Hey
you.
guys, what's going on? Thanks for having me, Jake.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I am a huge Dragon Ball nerd that has never gone away. I thought at one point it might, and it just doesn't. It's just an
Yeah,
incredible story, and you did such an incredible job, and you're doing such an incredible job. I mean, right now Dragon Ball Daima is underway, and it's awesome. But
yes,
man, we got so much to talk about. How are you
we
doing right
do.
now?
I'm doing great. I just had a big, fat, juicy burger here at the house. So thankfully, none of you can smell my breath because I've got the onion and all of that going on. So, but I'm like Goku in the sense that, we got to eat. Got to eat.
Hey, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you how you got into voice acting. It's been something that I've always been interested in because I
Yeah.
essentially do content creation for a living. But how'd you get into it? And yeah, I'm curious.
Well, it's a long answer. I'll try to summarize. So when I was a kid, I was really into music, even as long ago as I can remember anything. I was singing, probably 3 years old, singing, dancing, putting on shows. I knew in a way that I knew that I was going to pursue those kinds of things in my future life, and just because it's just what I enjoyed doing. It was my passion. So I started using my voice for the singing and learning songs and lyrics, and then was also coming up with voice, like character voices, with me and my brother and my friends. And I would, once I got a hold of a tape recorder back then, it was like something you could carry around with batteries and a little cassette. And I would carry that around starting at like, I don't know, 7 or 8. And I would record, I could spend hours recording things. I'd play on the piano. I played by ear. So I would make up songs and poetry. And I was constantly coming up with character voices. The goal as I got older wasn't necessarily I'm going to be a voice actor, because when you're, that just never crossed my mind as far as like a profession, because I was always so interested in the music. But the music and the vocalizing kind of goes hand in hand, and it became hand in hand later on. But then I got into theater and musicals and community theater and drill team and pom pom. We moved around every 2.5 years, so I was always the new girl trying to kind of find my way in these small towns. And my mom was my hero, and she would be the one that would listen and always be there for my dance recitals, and supported me with this dream of mine. And she tried to help as much as she could, as I was growing up. And I ended up in the Dallas Fort Worth area the end of my 11th grade year. Another really tough move. That was rough, rough, rough. And then I went straight into college for music. University of North Texas is a music school. And then after I started in vocal performance and started singing with the choir and all of that, I decided to switch my major to dramatic arts so that I could learn more about serious acting. But still got cast in all the musicals and all of the things involving music and dancing. And so I was like, why fight it, right? So then I joined a show band. I was actually joined a band at 18 that was local to, I met them through like the frat and sorority. I wasn't in the sorority, but I knew people. And I went to one of the parties and got up and sat in with the band because they were like, hey, well, come sit in with us or whatever. And so I did. And then we started rehearsing. And about a year later, well, probably not even a year, we were rehearsing, and my voice and all the music was coming through the window. And a neighbor who had had his own band came over as I was leaving and asked me if I'd like to audition for his band. So I auditioned for his band, and the agent for that band had another band that he thought I'd be more suited for, and they had a spot open for one of the three, the girls trio, because they sing, dance, act, and travel and change costumes like a Vegas act. It's called Vince Vance and the Valiants. So
Hmm.
I came out to audition for that one, and of course I already had the bug. I knew I wanted to do it, and I mean, like literally, like 3 days later, I was on the road with a touring show band, and I stuck around for over 2 decades. Um, thinking I'd go back to college, I'd get a degree and all that, but I was not gonna leave, and I ended up being like the longest term singer in the band, the girl out of the girls. And then I kept coming back because someone would leave, and I'd start training. Anyway, during that time, I was also working with a band called Brave Combo. They're in a Grammy Award-winning polka band. I'm also Polish. Nadolny is Polish, dad's side. One of the local fans of the band was the director for Dragon Ball Z. I didn't know any of this at the time, but he was looking for local talent in Dallas-Fort Worth to take the recording process and the in-house recording down from Vancouver to Dallas-Fort Worth, knowing that there was a lot of talent here and they wouldn't have to pay residuals or royalties. So the company was called Funimation, and I was asked if I ever did voices. You've got a very animated voice. And I said, yeah, I do voices all the time. I'm involved in a lot of theater. I did some stuff for Chuck E. Cheese, and then there was a toy company that recruited me that sang in character voices, like the little toys that spin around that you squeeze their little hand or whatever, their paw, and they swirl around and sing Christmas songs. And so I had already been working with some of my fellow musicians doing that on the side in between tours. And so I was available and showed up to the audition and had no idea what it was, had no idea what anime was. I just knew it was a cartoon. And I auditioned for all the females. And at the end of the audition, Barry Watson, the director, and 2 others were there, asked me to do the voice of a child, of a boy. And I just rattled off my best little kid voice, how about this, and they liked it, and they added some rasp, and about a week later I got a call saying I had been cast as Gohan, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, who's Gohan? What is this? What did I get cast in, because you never know when someone gives you their card and you're in the industry, sometimes nothing ever happens, so I never get my hopes up, and I'd had so many people do that, just from traveling and sitting in with bands and vice versa and things like that. So that's where it all began for me. And then from there, I was cast after Gohan. We did the Cell Saga, so I was also Cell Saga Gohan, which to me is a completely different voice because it's like the most manly voice I could come up with based on the direction. And then East Kai, ready, I'm the queen. I got the voice of East Kai just randomly because I had time left in my session. And then in between all this, I was singing in bands and, traveling with Vince Vance and the Valiants and, doing my thing. And I wasn't really called in very often because we could do 2 or 3 hours and I'd be done with several episodes, at the time. And then when they picked up a property called Yu Yu Hakusho, I did some background voices for that and also sang the animation theme, Sayonara Bye Bye, which a lot of my fans have no idea I'm a singer at all, but I had a full-blown career going with that, and I miss it desperately. Not that I can't sing or anything like that, but I miss being in the studio and recording and creating and writing, and that is definitely something on my agenda. But that's how it started, and we picked up Funimation picked up Case Closed, Blue Gender, Kitty Grade. I sang the opening and closing themes for that, helped produce the English lyrics out of the Japanese with Carl Finch, who was the same the same founder and musician and singer from Brave Combo. Same type of connections, all kind of were coming from that direction. So, and then from then on, it's just a matter of just coming in when I'm needed and recording till it's all done. That's where it all started for me, is industry contacts through musicians, through recordings, through Chuck E. Cheese, all of that whole thing with Brave Combo just opened a lot of doors. I was also writing and producing and singing jingles and parodies, like Weird Al Yankovic, changing songs, lyrics to be funny so that they could play it on morning show radio. I did that on the side, more for experience and more to kind of dive into the creative process and learn about the industry and stuff like that. And then I was called in to be a soloist for some of the comedic parodies that were being written at the radio stations. And then they would sign up for the network and it'd be put on CDs every week and they'd be sent out to anybody and everybody who wanted to use them. So that was a lot of fun. I definitely find myself writing parodies all the time, just with whatever I hear, with current events. I see that might be something I need to get back into. So that's where it all began. It's all through the music and through the context. So I had already been voice acting, all my life per se, and having the acting background is what solidified it. Because you can make great voices and be a really awesome mimic, but you have to be able to breathe life into characters just by looking at a photo. And some of them are backwards. Like I worked on KO, okay, KO, Let's Be Heroes at Cartoon Network. And it was the opposite, where we all met together at the same time and had different cubicles, and we would record back and forth, and then they would animate after the fact. But that was not anime. So there you have it.
No, that's awesome. It's really cool. And I always love just like the origin of like everyone's story, especially yours. I mean, there's so many different things that you did, and that means so much to so many people, including myself. What would you say are some challenges you faced throughout your career? Because, I mean, this couldn't have been easy, like going back and forth and knowing the dialogue and all this stuff. And, you know, just like what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
The first challenge in voice acting for me was the first time I went in to record. It was out of my comfort zone in the sense that I'd never worked on an anime. I didn't know the people working there. I didn't know Barry very well. And I found myself kind of self-conscious, like, you know, how do you do this? Okay, then you have to learn the mechanics. You have to know, I knew the microphone and the headphones, and I'd been singing on albums off and on with Vince Vance since 1991. So I'd already had a lot of experience doing that, because this was 1999, the beginning of 1999. And I remember going in there. It's not that I had stage fright, because I had to get over that as a kid. Like that was going to have to get figured out. Because I was singing in recitals and stuff when I was younger, and I had to get over that to be able to advance and learn and grow. So I just remember being like reserved and hesitant with you know, the process, because you have to make weird faces, you have to do weird things, you have to move in weird ways, and there's this big, you know, window, and so I felt like I kind of had an audience when I kind of would rather have not had an audience for that. But then once I did, like after I got through the first 2 or 3 sessions, which ended up being weeks and months apart, because a lot of us early on were like, did we get replaced, or are we going to still be doing this? Is this going to keep something we can do long term? Like none of us really knew, because I met a lot of the cast members around the time we all got cast, and we met and had like a cast party, and we were doing cast parties like once a year. That all changed because the company kept growing and growing, and the talent kept growing, and the company was bought by Sony, and all these things were happening. And like, I think 2008 and 9 is when everything kind of switched over to another company, and then it grew into Crunchyroll, which is owned by Toei Japan. So so it was just a matter of getting used to the process, and because once you get used to the process and you get where you know where you have to be with the voice, basically, like say the session 1 to 2, I would just have my headphones on, and they'd play me a reference of what I did the last time, and then I would just mimic myself. So that's kind of how I got through that first hurdle. And then after that, obviously Cell Saga is a lot of screaming, a lot of grovelly, extremely low, manly type of voice that has to come out of me. And I'm glad the directors trusted me with it. And I mean, we never know what we're working on until we get there. So there's no like, hey, just so you know, you're gonna be working on this and be thinking there was none of that. You just show up, boom, put the headphones on and just go. And for efficiency's sake, after we were working for a while, we would hear 3 beeps, and we would go to the next line with paper scripts and watch the TV to match the flaps. And so a lot of stuff has changed over the years, but that's how it was done back then. And then we were given like some VHS tapes of some of the work we did. It was all on VHS. It switched over to DVD probably around 2003, something like that. And then I also was cast in Dragon Ball GT. So Goku gets turned back into a kid for GT, and I knocked those out. And then that was pretty much it, because my characters all grew up, and a lot of changes were going on. There was a lot more competition. There was a lot of people moving to the region to hopefully get a job at now it's Crunchyroll. They were wanting to get jobs there, and then they moved again, and like all of a sudden they're a whole new building, and there's like 20 studios going at once around that. I think it's a giant office. It's amazing. It's huge. It's like a restaurant and I don't know. It's great. So I got called in to do some Walla background voices like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but nothing substantial. And then I finally got back onto the newer audition list, and that's just timing and when the director hears what they want and things like that. I started doing Comic Cons around 2017. I thought I was old news, so I didn't understand why people are like asking me to come up here. I'm like, well, I did this stuff years ago. Like, this is really like, not to cut myself down, but it's like, what's so important about me now? Like, I'm auditioning, but there's really nothing new I'm working on. I mean, now I am, but I started to see that started to become lucrative. So I started working more Comic Cons, comic shops, meet and greets. During COVID, I did some of those online. I have a lot of jobs in my history that I could have gone back to, but COVID was hard for anything face to face with anybody. So I couldn't perform. Our band had to go on hiatus. It's called Moonglass. And I'm a worker. So I always found a way to pay the bills. And this is great. Now the Daima's out, and I'm doing Comic Cons more than ever, pretty much every weekend, and it's kind of like the steady thing I'm doing, other than in between stuff, ordering merch, couple of videos, making business calls, prospects, working with different agents, and things like that.
No, that's awesome. And, obviously that means just so much to people that I see those events. I've actually never been to one, but I see those events all over Twitter and YouTube. I mean, people, they come decked out with like every, the whole cosplay. So that's really, that's gotta be fun.
It really is. Like I said, and I kind of crept back out into it, kind of like still not understanding why years later that I would be. And then when I went to my first or second one, I'm like, oh, this is all nostalgia and comics and toys and Marvel and superheroes and Star Trek and Star Wars. Like I started to realize, because my first Comic-Con appearance was San Diego Comic-Con in 2000. And that's after I'd been working there a year and a half. And that was my first one. I'd never been to one. I didn't know they existed. No, I had never even heard of comic. I'd never been to one. So me and 3 of the other main cast members went, and I ended up having approved all these kids, mostly little boys, some girls, that I was really the voice, because I was there with 3 other characters that were male actors. And then we got to meet like Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, and some of the other guests that were there. And we gave out, signed trading cards, and it was really fun. And then I did a few more, and then, the Burger King promotion came out. I saw some Dragon Ball Z stuff over in Italy, which was like, okay, this is a bit bigger than I realized. And then I saw it on TV in Italian, and that was 2000. So that's when I kind of realized, okay, this is a bigger deal. Nobody really ever told me about it, like much about its origin. I had to kind of figure that out on my own. Because, you're just kind of contract labor. You just come when you're needed, and then you're done for a while, or you may be there. With Cell Saga, I was there more than once a week. The screaming and yelling was definitely hard on my voice, but I was constantly using it. I was resting it. I knew how to take care of it. But, by then I'd been working professionally for over 10 years. So I already knew kind of what to do to take care of my voice, sleep, lots of water. And then I would just come back, and I might sound like a frog the next morning, but by the time the session hit, or by the time it's, everybody's ready for us to perform again, it would come back, or I would, just baby it a lot. And being in practice like that really helped. Like the singing helped the voice acting, and voice acting helped the singing. It's like, it was like a balance of the two. And, I knew how to sing around illness. I knew how to produce sound even when I was in pain, or when I was sick, or, you just kind of had to learn. The show must go on. I mean, we back then, we weren't subbing out at all. Years later, there was a time when we could bring someone in who had already left the band and kind of plop them in and agree to do it. And then, if somebody got really sick, where it's like, you cannot be around other people, because, we just pass everything around each other on the tour bus. If you're on the tour bus and someone has a stomach bug, we're all going to get it. There's no way to get around that. So, but, I was young, 20s and 30s, just rocking and rolling out there with the rock and roll show band. Vegas Act is kind of like Sha Na Na meets B-52s, if that makes any sense. 3 girl singers, costumes, comedy. Vince Vance has been around 53 years. He started the band in 1971 in New Orleans. There's a lot of stuff online people can look up about him. He's still doing it, not as many gigs and not really touring much, but he's the only original member. So we're like family.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's definitely cool. I like that like you don't have just it's not a straight ahead story. Like there are multiple like if you were to write a book about yourself, I don't know if you already have. But if you were to write a book about yourself, I mean, you got all sorts of stuff like all over the place. Kind of going back to Dragon Ball here, you know, what would you say like how did you approach you know, going from Goku and Gohan because they're different
Hmm.
characters
Right.
entirely. So how
Right.
like it's not just the voice, but how do you approach that from like just kind of like the standpoint of okay, I'm this character right now and I'm this character and they're just in different like I mean you talk about like Goku for instance, more like happy go lucky. I mean they both are, but Gohan's gone through like crazy amounts of trauma at a young age. Like
Yeah.
Goku
Yeah.
is almost like too like ignorant to know like what's going
Right.
on early on. So
Innocently.
it's
Yeah.
like a different, you know, it's like a
Yeah.
different thing.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the acting experience is where that all came in, and differentiating the voices, which Funimation was very good about, really making everyone sound completely different, so there was no confusion. Which I loved it because when I did get the voice of East Kai, which she's in I don't know 6 or 7 episodes, uh, the only reason I was cast is because I delivered a character voice that sounded nothing like Goku or Gohan. In fact, I even was asked to audition for Frieza early on, and
Oh wow.
that would have torn me up even more. But they went with someone else simply because when I'm screaming, yelling, fighting, exerting, it was going to sound too much like Gohan in the Cell Saga
Mm.
because it's just too similar. It could get really confusing. Plus, it's a male character, but a female or a male could voice him. He's a villain, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just the main thing was following direction because we don't have a choice as actors in the studio. We're not writing it. We're not. We're not. I mean, out of respect for the directors, you know, I wouldn't even try to change anything. I would just like maybe do it again a different way, or I would like, you know, punch a certain syllable or word the next time around. And thankfully, even early on, there was the capability of the ADR director to keep recording. And if I didn't get it the first time, once I'm watching it with the flaps, I would do it again and I would know exactly what to do. And over time, that became instantaneous and second nature. So if it's like a flap looks weird or it cuts off earlier than and I carry on, I know that I have to tighten it up and do it again, and they can usually slide it into place. Nowadays they have computers and we have computer scripts and they can zoom in and zoom out based on what you need to see it. And it's a larger studio. It's everything's just up to date with all of the technology. And I jumped right in the booth last, I guess, July, and I actually had a technical audition for Goku Mini, and I was just happy to be there. I was like, let's do this. You know, I love being in the studio. I love recording. I love because I self critique a lot, which I think can be good as long as it's not too much. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got in there and had great chemistry with the director. He's much younger. He grew up watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid. The ADR director in there as well. That does more of the technical side. He was a big fan, so they were like, "Can I get your autograph?" It was so weird, like coming to work and being like, "Can you sign my figure?" I was like, "Yeah, you know, of course. You know, I love my fans. They're everywhere, which I didn't know early on. And just to be back in the game is just exhilarating and so appreciated. You know, everyday life can really, you know, take you down some dark roads, and I went through a lot between the time I finished in '09. Between then and now has been 16 years. So
Oh wow.
yeah, I mean, I was doing other things, doing, you know, in the industry, but not really voicing characters. I kind of, you know, fell off the map dealing with a lot of losses and grief, and was trying to have a family and was denied that opportunity a couple times. That was really difficult. And I just figured, you know, my characters grew up not really needed anymore, even though I knew I had other voices in the arsenal. But it's just a matter of timing. The right director has to hear your voice. You know, all of that has to come together with the right timing. So it's really just good to be back. And I'm auditioning. Anytime I get an audition in my email, I always submit, because if you don't submit, you don't have a shot. but sometimes they'll hear another voice before they get to you. There's hundreds of people auditioning, if maybe not thousands. I mean, thousands. Crunchyroll even uses some of the LA and the New York actors for some of the projects because they can do like a remote session. COVID taught a lot of us a lot about this, even like this interview, like that we can do there's the podcast interviews are like everywhere now. And we have the capabilities to communicate with other people without being in the same room. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is wild how that happened because, I mean, I don't even start a YouTube channel and I don't really grow my brand without COVID. So, I mean, as annoying and obviously as bad as that was, I tried to make the most of it. And it led us here today. I mean, I definitely wouldn't be doing this without, dropping everything I was doing and actually doing video. But, as far as, your characters and growing up, like, what is that essentially like? You bring these characters to life and it's almost like they kind of graduate onto like the next, phase. Do you still feel as connected in their, adult form or, what have you? And do you still follow at that point? Are you kind of like, man, this is painful. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always happy for whomever and however, whatever happens with castmates or whatever. I'll see some of them at the conventions here and there, depending on where we all are. We're all kind of, on our own schedules. We're all self-employed. We all just kind of have our own thing. Some people with agents, some people without, some people are freelance, whatever it is. It was painful to not be called in for so long, being that was a big part of my craft and a big part of my income. Like I said, though, I was trying to, have kids and I planned a wedding and there was all kinds of things I was doing that was taking up a lot of time. And then, went through a very, very dark period of time where I just didn't feel like I had any purpose anymore. Cause my mom died right after I got cast as Gohan and she was my world, literally my world. So when it came time to do the Cell Saga, I had some real life experience to draw from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she had been subjected to environmental toxins when we lived in a southeastern town in Kansas for a few years. And in fact, I was at getting ready for my 10-year reunion, and she was in the hospital fighting and second round of chemo, bone marrow transplant from her sister. There's a lot of benzene plants and a lot of cancer up that way. We didn't have 100% proof of anything, so there was no lawsuit, but the doctor was like very sure that it was environmental toxins that made her so sick. And then it's a 50-50 chance at that point with no immune system. And so I was out on the road traveling, and mom was a matriarch, so she didn't want everybody to drop everything for her. She took care of everybody else. And it ended up with pneumonia in the hospital for complications. And there, at that point, it's no immune system. You can't, we weren't told anything. We just sat by her side and tried to be nothing but encouraging. But she passed away right after I got off a tour one time. And of course, I went straight to the hospital as soon as I heard she was declining. And that was just really the worst part of my life, that and not being able to have my own kids, which is like, that's what I always wanted to do my whole life, is be a mom. So now I've had to just kind of like, okay, this is not where my path, took me. So I am an anime mom now, and I have kids all over the world.
Hey,
so, lots
you got
of love
the
and
right attitude.
Yeah. Oh, you have to make good out of stuff, and you can't always you can try to make plans and do the next right thing to achieve that, but it doesn't always come out the way you think. Yeah. So, and I'm the different one in the family. Nobody else took this route. None of my family's musicians. Nobody went into any kind of acting or show business at all. I mean, so I'm kind of like the weird one, that kind of, I followed my dreams and I followed my passions. And as a result, dedication, hard work, patience, self-discipline, all of that stuff has to happen. And I just went out there and pounded the pavement and started my life over after she died and bought a house. I'm still here. And I'm just somehow surviving. the resilience from moving around and just being transplanted was not easy growing up, but it's taught me a lot about finding a way to kind of fit in anywhere when you feel like you're not fitting in at all anywhere else. So, and then I'm also a big supporter of anti-bullying. I was always the new girl, and it was difficult for the kids. We're all like young and immature anyway, and you get some new kid coming in, it's like they either embrace you if you're really good at like athletics, or they're like, oh, she sings and dances, oh, I hate her. And it was hard because right when I'd start to fit in, it was time to move again, and I never had any say in it, obviously, because I was a kid. And but I do keep in touch with my classmates, specifically middle school, on Facebook and social media, and that gives me a lot of joy to kind of watch and chat with people that I grew up with. And people, and
absolutely.
You start making really big memories around fifth grade is when you kind of really start to kind of become who you are and stuff. So big fan of social media when it's used for things like that.
That's for certain.
And to promote gigs. And, the website I have, I try to keep that updated with where I'm going to be. This year I'll be the busiest I've ever been. I think I'm booked out almost to the end of the year, through summer at least, and then I'm just filling in the blanks. I'm making it work,
Yeah, it's a lot. Especially like I can't imagine how many shows and Comic-Cons and different conventions and what have you, and then of course actually doing the work which you're doing. It's got to be a lot with Daima and everything. It probably ramped up. I want to ask you because, going back to, Teen Gohan essentially during the Cell Saga and how you felt like, it was happening right around that time where, you lost your mother and you could kind of, I guess what I was getting from is that you could almost like kind of channel that you too, the character in you almost kind of were going through something at the same time. Which is really fascinating. What are your most memorable moments, for your characters throughout your career, that like just those moments that just stand out to you? Like, yeah, this was my favorite. This is like, what are some of them?
Well, with the singing career, the highlight there was, I was chosen to be in a show band at the WinStar Casino for the senior breakfast in 2010. And Dan, my business manager, bass player, was the leader of the band. And we were all good friends, and we knew some of the best, musicians in the entire region. So we put together a band, sax, keys, drums, bass, vocals, and guitar. And 4 of the 6 could sing. So we had 4-part harmony. And we didn't know anything about, okay, well, we just got to get enough to do the first show, and then we're just going to see what happens. Well, that ended up lasting 4 years. And so I was actually chosen to be the front person. There was, like I said, other vocalists in the band, but I was the one that ran with the wireless mic, ran all over the crowd. 2,000 seniors would come in every Wednesday and Thursday morning, and there'd be a free buffet. They would line dance. It's crazy because it's like, this is in Oklahoma. This is like, hour and a half drive or more, depending on where we all lived. And I rode along with Dan Bradford, and we just decided, well, we're just going to, you drive one day, I drive the next, and we're just going to just do it that way. And I was right on the way. So, and we rehearsed every week. And so that was a highlight of my personal singing career because I was fronting a band, a big band, like an amazing, like, these guys are my favorite, like not just musicians, but we were like brothers and sisters and family. And, we all came together on a concept and ran with it and made sure it was good and that we were tight and that we were rehearsing regularly to make it just magical. And we would watch, seniors walk in there on their walker, well, they would walk or kind of like trudge in on a walker, or they would be on crutches, or they would be, they'd hear that music and it would just ignite their soul. And we could just see all these amazing things happening. And we started taking requests, and it became this big deal. We had like characters, and I started adding the costumes that I had experience doing, and I started throwing in the jokes and the the improv and the comedy and the senior moments, and it just became its own thing. And then of course the promotion had, nothing lasts forever. The promotion did end 4 years in, And we saw these people every week. Like, these became like our family. They became like our aunts and uncles, and we'd have breakfast with them and coffee, and so that's the big highlight of my singing career, other than being on a lot of the albums from Brave Combo and Vince Vance. But as far as the voice acting, really pushing my limits with some of these auditions, and really kind of, the East Kai voice, the Germany English teacher. There was like a little villager in Dragon Ball Z episode 3 or 4 that I'd forgotten about, and I'm that voice too. It's like, oh, that's Dragon Ball. It's I can't even do it right now because I don't know what her lines were, but I'm just now recently watching Dragon Ball for the first time, and it's crazy because it's like I know the cast, I know where it all began, and it's really funny. Like, I kind of understand now why people watch that, and then they go back and they watch it with their kids, and it's like it's still relevant. It still makes sense, and it still has that crazy humor. So I think the most challenging is just to always come up with unique voices, and without mimicking, really working on, how can I build that arsenal of voices. And, having done a lot of that as a kid, I had a girlfriend in middle school, and all summer long we would make these little cassettes, and she would interview me and I'd interview her. We would write the theme to the show, and we'd sing it, and she was in choir with me. So I had already kind of been doing it. But then as a job, like as a career, it's like, it's just, I think that just for me personally became more of the unique ability. A lot of people can sing, and a lot of people can fall into the right path to be discovered, or they might live in LA or Nashville, or they might know somebody, So for me, as much as I wanted to be a recording artist and did go to Nashville and was trying to kind of navigate my singing career, the voice acting is actually what put me on the map as far as globally, which I didn't even know was going on. Dan told me, did you know you had a Wikipedia page, and did you know you have an IMDb? And I'm like, what are all those things? Like, I didn't know. I was being busy traveling and touring, and just always running around. And so that's just something, I mean, not complaining at all. But it just may be what's more unique about my voice is that I can sing as characters, I can be the character, I can sing. So having that multifaceted level of different types of talents just kind of all came together, and I can actually see myself directing at some point, because I feel like being on the other side of things, I could help kind of really pull the best out of someone. I've actually had some experience directing singers and young starlets, and showbiz, kind of musical theater type stuff. I did teach voice and piano during COVID. That was very difficult though, because some of them were online, and it's really hard to teach piano, without a piano in front of both of you.
That feels tough.
That was interesting, but I sure did love teaching the kids music, because that's just my passion. And I remember being a kid and wanting to do it so bad. And so I could always kind of go back and do a little bit of that. But right now I am just riding the wave. I'm riding the Nimbus cloud, and wherever the Nimbus cloud takes me, I'll be happy and grateful, and I'm just thrilled to be back, and hope to continue to do a lot. This year is going to be super busy, but I love to travel. I just feel like I'm back on tour, but just with something completely different, because I was on tour and living out of suitcases for many years with that first show band. So I guess it kind of primed me for what I'm doing now.
Oh yeah, well, and it means so much, because I mean, we've been waiting for something. I mean, Super ended 8-9 years ago. So to get Daima, it just feels like, thank God we got something. Like I feel,
yeah,
I just feel like we should probably have gotten more. Like, I feel like this is one of the IPs out there that's just almost untouchable. Like the story, you just don't find, like, because people will say it's not as complex. And I here's my thing. Like, if I have to sit there and watch 1,000 episodes of something to understand it, whereas, the whole IP, the whole show of Dragon Ball, I don't have to do that. I feel like that's better storytelling,
And you can jump in. You can jump in kind of in the middle. I mean, we had to, as the actors, we had to jump in at episode 54 or 57. I don't know exactly the number, but it was the Ginyu Saga. So we were jumping in and taking over from a previous cast. I wasn't given any information. Some of the other origin stories reflect that they'd seen parts of it, or they had heard of it, or they had specific characters they wanted to audition for. For me, it was a blank slate. I just knew it was animated. That's it. And then as I went along and was in on and off the road and coming in for my sessions, that's when I started to learn about manga and cosplay and Japanese anime and, just the ins and outs of it, how it works. And it starts there. And then we just do everything you hear, not everything you see. And then as time went on, we all realized, okay, this is a bigger deal than we thought and anybody else thought. I mean, I say we, meaning Dragon Ball Z celebrated its 40th anniversary last year. The first manga came out, Dragon Ball manga came out in 1984. And then 1986 is when Dragon Ball premiered on some TV somewhere in Japan.
Somewhere.
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of confusing because I was, oh, that's the Ocean dub. Oh, that's the Funimation dub. Like, I'm learning about that just from being at Comic-Cons and being online and watching the other actors. And I think some of the actors get kind of like competitive or jealous or something, but I'm not like that. I want to meet who did the voice before me. I want to meet the Hispanic Latin America Gohan and Goku. Like, I think it's fascinating. And it's like, they did it before us, it's like, well, how did you I find it interesting. And then I've ended up at a lot of panels at some of the conventions with some of the other actors and really had an exciting time getting to meet them and, talking about how it was all done then. And wow, we're at a con. Wow, we're a guest at a Comic-Con and it's been 25 years. Like, this is crazy, And so I enjoy it. But I'm a people person. I just love people in general. So I don't think you can be shy and do some of the showbiz stuff I've done. So, yeah, it's important.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Definitely not.
Definitely not. You can't do either of what we're doing right now and be shy. It just doesn't work out. No. You got, when you're in front of a camera or having a microphone in front of you, you gotta do something with it, right?
Well, now it's like you give me a microphone and be good luck if you get it back. Cause like, I'm going to take off with it. I'm kind of joking,
the same way.
Cause like sometimes they'll have me do announcements and like different things in the voice. Come on over here and get your autograph. I got my power pole or whatever. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, let's just come back and, we'll do some more announcements later. Cause like sometimes they think that we don't want to do that or whatever. I'm like, no, you give me a microphone. I'm good. I got it. In fact, it's always better if it's impromptu or if there's a shout out or something. It's like, okay, give me the mic. Let's go. Or tell me when you're recording. And then it becomes what it becomes. And usually 9 times out of 10, I can nail it in the first try because I'm not overthinking it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Is there a piece of dialogue that stands out to you that would be you'd say was your favorite of everything that you've done?
Out of all of this stuff here, pre-Dragon Ball would probably be the little kid voices, the Halloween, Christmas, I did like an Easter bunny for an Easter toy. It was literally like, could do one session and do like 17 different voices or 10 different songs. So they'd be snippets of songs. And I liked voicing a character and then singing as that character, which I think is more of a unique talent, and I already can do that either. So that everybody has their talent, everybody has something they can naturally do, and it's just good, So then I started, writing songs and singing them like little kids, like Goku, Gohan, but similar, and then harmonizing with myself and finding other kinds of stuff. But as far as Dragon Ball Z, because Gohan is kind of more of a background character when I came along. He's more about reactions, shock and awe, landing, exertions. So it was a lot of, just a lot of reactions, not a whole lot of dialogue. So I just became known as the reactress because that's mostly what Gohan was doing then. And then, so that's what I remember most about Gohan. And then, of course, the Cell Saga and, really feeling the pain and the voice cracking and coming from a really emotional place, having lost mom and just all of that. And then as far as Goku, him coming around and just being like this higher pitched chipper kid, it's raised in the woods and doesn't know what a girl is, The delivery was different, like we talked about earlier, where it's just more carefree, more innocent, more not so smart, but like in a very endearing way. He just hadn't learned it, but he can get away with saying some of the most bizarre things that would never, kind of not PC. I mean, it's still
I
risque.
know. I
I mean, I
I
was
just
like,
rewatched Dragon Ball, and in this day and age, it's like
and
I
it's
don't
like
know.
not, it's the stuff isn't cut out. It's the full, it's unabridged. So everything's
Yes.
there. And I just remember me and Dan were watching it, and then a friend of mine, we watched episode, I think, 4 or 5 and 6 this past weekend, and we were all like, oh my god,
Yeah.
what did he just do? Did he pat that person like to see if they're a girl or a
Yeah.
boy? Like, yeah, and but he's literally clueless, and I think that's
Oh
just
yeah.
part of. He's pure of heart, he doesn't fall through the cloud, and Krillin does, and Bulma does, and Master Roshi does. It's like, you guys must not be pure of heart, and it's all said in such a way that it's not threatening and it's not mean, and it's just Goku. That's just him. So when
Yeah.
it came on, I mean, I literally just showed up to work one day and boom, okay, we're starting Dragon Ball from the beginning. You are the voice of Goku, and then they would show me, a scene, the beginning scene, and I just was following direction. Okay, higher pitch, more carefree, not too smart, lovable, laughs a lot, not scared of anything. I just follow direction, and there you have it. There, Goku was born, and I had so much fun voicing him. And coming back as Daima is so cathartic, and it's just like riding a bike. I mean, I literally am just like, I did the voice for so long, and then even at the Comic Cons doing the voice and shout outs and videos and things and cameos, whatever you want to call it. So I'd stayed in practice in my own way, and to get back up on the horse like that after so many years is just like my
And
heart and soul. It's like it's back, and yeah, I'm not planning to stop anytime soon. I know Masako Nawaza. I hope I'm saying her name right. The original Japanese
think
voice
so.
actor for Goku Goten. Yeah, all of the Goten, Goku, and Gohan. And I believe last I heard she was 88 years old.
It's
And
crazy. It's
yeah,
crazy.
so I
I
got
don't
really,
know. I it's funny because you had mentioned earlier like the screaming, and it's like you kind of forget about that as just like a viewer. Like you also have to do that. Like I totally forget, and then someone will post something on like Twitter, and it's like
like
Sean
a
going
clip.
crazy, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's right. They actually have to scream when they're like powering up. That's
Yes.
not easy.
No. And then one thing I say they meaning Funimation for me, is they were able to just skip to the reactions and the dialogue, and then at
Mm,
the end of the session go back and do all of the heavy hitter stuff, the screaming, the yelling. Even for video games, we do all of that at the end. If we blow our voice, we blow our voice, but it's worth it. It's like, it's for the children, it's for the fans. You got to give it your all. So that was helpful. And then I could just rest my voice and drink water and sleep and try not to answer the phone and stop talking. Shh. And it's like, because when I don't speak or I'm not posting, or people are like, is she okay? Like, that's not the Stephanie I know. You know what I mean? So, but it's like,
yeah.
I'm wasting my voice. Shh, can't talk right now.
I should be
Vocal
following
rest.
suit. Like your voice
It
is only
happens.
as strong as it's
It
given
happens.
essentially.
Yeah. Well, you get sick and then you cough and then you're raspy and then you're coughing more. And the next thing you know, you might have laryngitis. And, I had to figure out how to deal with that. It's singing in a show band. I mean, the gigs are booked. You got to just
Yeah.
go. There were times when we would be, the girls, I say the girls because the trio, because we work, in the dressing room, we're on and off stage together, constantly sharing rooms, things like that. And we just pass it around, and then whoever was in the best shape we just say, well, you're gonna have to sing a couple of my songs tonight because I can't, I can barely talk.
Oh my
So,
god.
so when it came time to go back and do these sessions, I'm like, well, okay. I mean, like I got to where I wasn't really even warming up because I was just constantly in practice. I'm not
Mm.
saying don't warm up out there, guys. If you're wanting to do vocal stuff, don't neglect the warming up and the steam and the hot tea and the lemon, all of that stuff, and the lozenges. All there's definitely a lot of, what do you call them? Herbs and just different things you can do to kind of protect your voice. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Like throat coat, all that.
yeah. There's a lot. There's more stuff out there now than ever. So But for me, I'm very independent. I was driving to and from my sessions by myself, and I could just vocalize or sing along with the radio. And, uh, I kind of just knew how to do that to get myself prepared for a session.
Yeah, I have experience with that. Not that I don't have a musical bone in my body, but my dad, he's been playing drums, guitar, singing, and all that. And I know what you were just saying, because he's probably going to watch this as well. I just know he was probably thinking the same thing. Like, oh man, you have the gig booked, and there's no way out of it, and you don't have a voice. Like, it's just gone. So. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, just from his experiences telling me, like, I've heard that.
Well, there's various ailments, but if you already have like for me, I've had lifelong allergies, and I happen to live in the worst part for them. DFW, if you look at the whole country, specifically Mountain Cedar this year is like the worst is DFW. And that's where I live.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm not going to move. I love it here. Yeah. But I have to take, my antihistamines, and I have to do my nasal spray, and I have to stay on top of maintenance, or next thing you know, I got a sinus infection. You throw me on the road with a tour bus and staying up weird hours, and sometimes skipping meals, and the bus would, break down, and it's like 2 below wind chill in Michigan. And it's like, you're going to get sick. Your body is like being tossed in and out of all these situations. And there were times when we had no AC. We couldn't sleep, so we were sweating. And I mean, it's just, thankfully, I was much younger then, and I could kind of tolerate it more. And I was just like, yeah, I'm in a rock band. Yeah, I'm singing in a band. It's just so cool. It's such a dream, and learned so much from it. And, I'm still in touch with a lot of my bandmates that, we basically lived together in this tube driving down the street, Yeah. And, yeah. So, you just figure out a way to do it. Or I said, look at a girl and say, hey, take the high part, or, well, you got to be ready for that. You got to change parts. Okay, I'm going to do the low part, you do the high part, because I'm sick as a dog, or whatever. And then sometimes you can't sing, and then you just dance around and hope they don't notice that you're not singing, and you're like, you can sing, but you can't because you're sick. It's just life on the road with a touring show band,
Yeah, I can imagine. I've definitely, I've had, live streams I've done where my voice just gave out, in the middle of it, or I also have asthma, so that's always great. Where it'd be like, yeah, and it's like people will notice to be like, he's taking more pauses than I'm used to. Like there must be. It's like, yeah, I can't breathe. I'm just getting through this thing, like one way or another.
Right. Sometimes you can change the key. You can change the key though. Like the musicians I work with were so talented that I could say, hey, can we take it down a half step or maybe a full step just till I can get over this? And no biggie. They'll work with you.
Yeah, no, you got to be creative sometimes, and you talked about improv, and there you go. It's part of it.
Change the melody if you have to, even so slightly, so that it's a cover song. Just change the melody, in a way that enables you to get through it. It's no choice,
Yeah, and you had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to double back on this because I found it so fascinating. You also voice over a lot of the video game of your characters, essentially. Are video game voiceovers the same as like a show? Are they different? Like, how does that work?
That is different in the sense it's a different pay scale, first of all. The video games I've done, there's no flaps to match. There's nothing to see, which in a way is easier. You're just doing, say, a few lines, and they're all different timing. They're all spread, like we may do a Kamehameha, and then we Kamehameha, or they're all different links so that they can be placed into the video game afterwards. So that's the biggest difference for me, I think. And then it's more difficult in the sense that it's a lot of rapid fire type, like you're in battle. A lot of screams. Again, we save them for the end. But it's pretty much you just, the last one I did, there was a screen, and the director was directing me from a screen from somewhere in LA. I was like, this is really cool. Like, look at the stuff we can do now with all of this technology that's constantly changing and being updated. But I tend to kind of beat up my voice more during a video game because it's just such rapid fire, and then you're going from kind of not so loud to extremely loud, or you might, so sometimes I leave kind of in a daze where my head might be pounding. I know when I was working on the Cell Saga and doing a lot of that screaming and talking like a man, like way down here was really painful. But I'd get over it. You bounce back. I'm glad that I was trusted with the role, and that some of the fans think that's my best work. They something about that arc. Cell Saga. Oh, Cell Saga Gohan. So yeah, but they're just different in the format and the way they're recorded. Sometimes they're in a different studio across town, which is no big deal. Just drive there, wherever. I mean, I'm in a commute everywhere I go in Dallas Fort Worth. There's so many suburbs, and there's downtown Dallas, and there's Arlington, and there's Fort Worth, and there's, it's just, you got your GPS, you put it in GPS and you go, allow for lots of traffic. Probably nothing like LA, but we have some serious traffic in Dallas Fort Worth. Let me tell you, that I-35 goes all the way to Minnesota, and that I live right off of I-35, which is an interstate. So, just leave early. Plenty to do if you get somewhere early. So
yeah. No, it's really cool because, I mean, I know now video games, it seems like everything has a story mode now. So I'm sure that's a little different than maybe say like the old school, like, just fighting game or whatever. But that's really interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I did read about it, but I haven't played Sparking Zero since. Are you in Sparking Zero, voicing over Goku Mini now?
At this time, no. I know that right now they're updating things all the time. Apparently, yeah. I'm not. I have no idea. The whole video game realm is completely out of my comfort zone. I have no idea, but I know that they can do updates and they can add voices as they go. As of now, I haven't been told one way or the other, but I do know that the Goku Mini is still Japanese, and with me being cast as Goku Mini, I'd like to think it's going to happen, but at this time, I don't have any definitive answer.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It is kind of funny playing as. I have played as Goku Mini, and I was low key expecting it to be you. And when it was Japanese, I was like, and I went to change my setting, and I was like, nope, the setting's correct. It's just that's the one character in the game that's Japanese, and it's hilarious because you have the intro scene where they both say something, and then you're not expecting it, and Goku Mini just comes out in Japanese. It's funny.
That's another thing that's different now from when I was in the early days of Funimation. We didn't hear anything Japanese, like no reference whatsoever. Now, and over the past maybe even decade-ish, the Japanese is played in our headphones, and then there's the 3 beeps, and then you deliver the line, or you deliver the exertion or the sound or whatever. And again, you start to develop a pattern with your director. For me, I'll just do another one. And then if it's the first one didn't get it, or the director chooses the first or the second one, and then they see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, I do it again. They can trim things. They can stretch things slightly without changing or altering the voice or the sound. To kind of make it a little easier, but things are a lot more efficient. So we go through and get a lot more done because of the logistics of the technology and the going forward and backward. It's digital, whereas back in the day, we were rewinding and fast forwarding, literally like a VHS tape. And so there was some stagnant time in there where someone like me that's like, I gotta be busy. I'm just standing here. I'm not doing anything. It was kind of frustrating. I mean, I got used to it. Don't get me wrong, but like, I felt like just standing there was just not. I felt like I wasn't working. I wasn't filling the time properly. But that's just how it was done. So, yeah, I didn't do anything wrong. It's just something you just have to get used to. So we move through, man. Boom, 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 boom. We're like, a lot of times here lately, I've been getting done early. So it's like, hey, we needed you for this amount of material, and we're done. I'm like, oh, I have to leave now. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it a lot, and really got, like I said, my team that I'm working with are phenomenal, very professional. We may cut up here and there, but nothing that takes away from, getting the work done and doing it well. So that's good.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine. I mean, what you guys are able to do is incredible. How it all just kind of comes together.
Yeah.
In all media essentially. I
Mhm.
wanted to touch on GT because I feel like obviously there's a cult following, and I feel
Yeah.
like it's underrated. But what would you say? Because like I understand, there's some people that didn't give it a chance. I mean, I don't really understand not giving it a chance, but I understand, maybe it's not as big as just Dragon Ball Z or OG
Yeah.
Dragon Ball,
Not as many episodes either, I don't think.
but it just feels like it is underrated because I feel like the story is different. And I mean, I thought you did a great job. I find Trunks' character to be appealing, and Pan, and
Yeah.
and then you have the whole season 2 where it just kind of goes off the rails, with like Super Saiyan 4 and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say? Do you think it's underrated as well, or do you think it's properly rated? How would you describe it as somebody that worked on it?
I mean, I enjoyed working on it. I love that Goku's a kid again. I love to get to work on another project. I don't have as much backstory on that. I do know that Akira, the creator, gave permission to someone, and I think it kind of went a different direction with the creative process and the story and all of that. But obviously you have to get permission if you're gonna be a writer. You're gonna say, hey, is this okay? It has to get approved.
Yeah.
I have not watched it, so
Oh, wow.
I don't feel like I have that's a very good question for me to answer because I haven't sat down to watch it start to finish. I just went from scene to scene. I've seen clips, and I know the other castmates, and that's about all I can say. I know that it's kind of, for me, it's been kind of an even split with like the feedback from it. Like there's people that love it. They love it. And there's people that are like, meh, GT, meh. So it's really fan preference. And some people are kind of neutral. There are a lot of people thinking that Daima is going to be like it. And what little I know about Daima, it's not really at all. It's a whole new demon realm. It's a bunch of new cast members that are the mini characters, and there's just a bunch of new talent that's breaking out with it. And I know it may sound like I'm biased, but I really just, it's a whole new deal. It's like a whole different planet and the realm, and it's really, to me, not anything like GT. The only thing is, Goku really is the only one turned back into a kid in that one, whereas Daima turned back into kids. And then there's the scene where the guy's like, well, or the Shenron's like, well, what do I do if they're already children? Turn them into babies, And so then, you got Trunks and Goten rolling around in their babies because they were kids during the beginning of that saga. Yeah. Series or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't have an opinion. It was work, and it was fun for me as an actor, and to be Kid Goku again was like super fun. And I think it was well done. The director did well. The experience recording it was positive. I think it's just a matter of preference, the fan preference, what they like.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people out there, dissecting this stuff, and there's going to be haters. There's going to be haters.
Wait, really? Haters?
I know all about haters.
No way. You mean the visuals and like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. It was like very space age and very science fiction. I don't know.
I agree with you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah. So I'm gonna eventually. I don't know when, because I'm busy. But I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna finish up Dragon Ball before I do anything else, and then at some point, maybe before too long, I'll get through all of them.
Dragon Ball is crazy. The way I think the character development is just so good. because
I'm like, Oolong is hilarious, and like
oh,
the things, the dynamics between Roshi, and I've gotten older, and I'm kind of turning it into my mom, and she's very, very conservative and very angelic, and I've gotten, I don't want to say I'm a prude, but I get really protective when I see children or think children are watching things that are inappropriate for them. So I found myself kind of blushing, going, what did I just watch? Like, this is a cartoon. This is anime. This should be.
I feel that.
I mean,
it's.
And Dan's
we
like, well,
talked about earlier. It wouldn't fly today. It just wouldn't.
No. But Dan is like, my guy. He's just like, this, okay, I get it now. He starts to, because he's met a lot of the actors. We've done a lot of, conventions
That's
together.
cool.
Sometimes we'll go out to eat. We'll get to hang around. And he mostly knows the OG Dragon Ball cast members. And those are the ones that I know the best and I see the most. And so he's like, so who's that? Who's that? And I started telling him who they were. He's like, oh, and he's seeing it all come together with me. And so he's like, well, this is like teenage boy humor, like more a little older, but like maybe not children, but sometimes this stuff will kind of fly over their head and not really do any real damage, hopefully. But yeah, it's been fun watching it and really seeing everything, nothing abridged and no commercials and all that stuff. Because like back in the day, it was on Cartoon Network, and they were like, it was abridged because it was Cartoon Network and because of their standards and guidelines, and you can't go out those. You can't have Gohan, a child, literally being pummeled and blood flying out of his nose. Like that was a big no. But we did record that, and that's like in the unabridged. So.
They did have him had his neck broken or whatever in the.
Oh yeah, I mean just
like I said earlier, nobody's gone through more trauma than Gohan. It's kind of crazy.
I can relate. That's why I feel like when people ask me which one I like better, it's like I like them both for different reasons. Because Gohan was the beginning for me, and Gohan does have such a traumatic childhood, and which mirrors my childhood, and watching people he loves die, literally.
Yeah.
And grief and loss and hesitation and like being unsure of himself, and me being the new girl all the time. I had self-esteem issues, and I was friendly to everybody, but then I was too friendly because I thought you're supposed to be friendly to everybody, and it's just you're still trying to figure out who you are. I mean, you're really still a kid, and so when it came time for him to unleash, I had real life experience, and I'd like to think it added to the performance. I mean, the fans seem to. Most of the feedback is that it did.
Oh, it's some of the best. I would say it's easily one of the biggest moments in the entire, and we're talking about Super as well. I think when you put everything together, that's easily one of the most like. I think just Cell Saga Gohan is one of the best looking characters too. But
no,
it's just
love it.
They just killed it, and then you killed it by going in there and just like perfect voice. I think and you're trying to, because they have to sell it to us. Like Goku just dropped out. Like this is like the strongest fighter, and he drops out and he's like, Gohan, come over here, and we're like, what? Like and Piccolo, it's like I can't even believe this is happening.
Yeah, I get a lot of that feedback. Like I said, I haven't seen Dragon Ball Z all the way through, and I haven't seen Super. But I get that the feedback that kind of mirrors what you're saying about, well, what happened to Gohan? Like he was like on his way to becoming kind of more of the lead character in a way. I don't know the story behind. I know that, Chi-Chi wants him to go to school. So he goes back to school, and he becomes a scholar or whatever. And, that's just the writing and the way that it went. And then we don't really have much choice other than to just show up, do our work, deliver the lines, and hope the fans like it.
Hey, it's great.
But
I've never met one person that didn't like it. So
right. I even had a friend of mine. She's a friend. She comes out to a lot of the events down in Austin and Houston, and she's a sweetheart. And she's like, "Oh, if you didn't watch Dragon Ball Z, like at my school, you were a loser." And I was like, wow, really? She's like, oh, everybody watched Dragon Ball Z. And I'm trying to think what I can relate to in my life, and yeah, I guess it'd be, I don't know, Looney Tunes, the Smurfs. I mean, it wasn't anime. We didn't really have a whole lot of anime when I was a kid. I mean, we had Speed Racer, and that was like the 60s, maybe in the 60s. It's mainstream now.
Yeah.
As I'm concerned, anime is right up there. It's got its own thing. It's its own genre, and I love that. I love that for the fans. I love that for Toei Animation and all the other, Maid Cafe and everything that comes out of Japan. I mean, it's like, I think it's great. They're the kings. They really are. And I'm just very thankful and really grateful that I get to be a part of something so huge that has been so life-changing for millions of people all over the world, including the people who are in my life now. I mean, I've met creators and artists. I've got original artwork on my table. I'm back on the road in a way, and doing interviews like this. And then next thing you know, I've got, more people to follow online, and then, more opportunities happen, and more opportunities for the fans to come together at these Comic-Cons and be themselves and be embraced. And I love seeing that. I love seeing that in action. I think that's amazing, especially coming from my background. I was picked on. I hung out with people younger than me. I hung out with the juniors when I was a senior, because the seniors were I just was a nobody. Nobody even really knew who I was, Came from small schools, and then all of a sudden I'm in a giant school with a ginormous, I think we were the first or second class to graduate from this school, and back before in Kansas, it was the 100th. So I was used to schools with a lot, and neighborhoods with a lot of history. And so up and coming school, nothing bad about it, but move when I did in the end of March of my 11th grade year was really, really tough. So I like seeing kids, young people, whatever you want to call them, having a place to be themselves and meet new friends that are like-minded with the same interests. And I see that all the time at these Comic-Cons, whether they're an anime event, comic book, or whatever. If it's got anime is one of the categories in some of these Comic-Cons. They're not always all anime. Some of them are. So I really like seeing that. It's very good for my soul to have some kind of an influence and have a part in contributing to that type of outcome.
No, that's awesome, and I think it makes a huge difference, because people are going there to see you, and they're going there because and that's the thing. I think voice acting is so important now. I think now it just seems like more than ever people are starting to actually give credit where credit's due. It's like from playing like the Uncharted video game, like anyone I've ever talked to knows Nolan North, voiced over Nathan Drake. Like, and there are different like voice actors out there. Like, I think the first one that comes to mind for me is David Hayter as Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid, if you've ever heard of that. It's cool. I feel like now more than ever, like, yeah, everyone goes on IMDb and checks, oh, I've seen them before in that movie, and then, types in, like, oh, yeah, that's who it was. But now I feel like more and more they're doing that. I just watched an anime the other day, Solo Leveling, and I noticed Christopher Sabat. I was like, why does this sounds like Whis is talking to Piccolo,
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, that was Christopher.
Yeah.
So now, like, I feel like you guys are getting more, like actual
recognition, maybe
recognition,
accolades, yeah.
Which you always should have been, but I feel like now it's more prevalent.
It is, even with the production of just anime after anime that's coming out of all of these companies all over the world, really. I mean, in different languages.
Yeah.
And I know that the big, there's this big thing that's been going on. It's kind of, I don't know if it's controversy, but there's like, so the big films, like the ones that are in the theaters, are being voiced by famous actors as opposed to famous voice actors. They're putting so-and-so in there because they want more people to see it, so therefore they'll make more money. So there's like a lot of that. Kind of like, this is really not fair.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
Life isn't fair. We all know that.
But yeah, I mean, I think, well, also, Like, I have never actually been into anime. I've always been into Dragon Ball. That was like my thing. And I think over the course of time, I've gotten more and more into it because of Dragon Ball. Like, you know, when I moved.
The gateway anime.
Yeah, I mean, I moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It absolutely is. I mean, I think it's the granddaddy of them all. That's how I view it. But, and I think a lot of people view it. But it's so interesting because I never expected myself, you know, at age 29 to still be talking about this, interviewing you. You know, it's fascinating, but even more so as somebody that, like, for the most part, for my career, I cover sports. And I've actually kind of had this synergy with, like, being a nerd and liking the Marvel stuff and liking Dragon Ball and kind of reaching out to this, you know, community that I've built, this audience, and they like it too. And it's like, you know, it's kind of a reminder. You might tune in for this, but there's no reason I can't throw an Easter egg here and there. And if somebody catches on to it, they're like, hey. So it is really cool in that sense. I have to ask you, I mean, first off, let me ask you this. With Dragon Ball Super, you've probably heard it a million times. Do you know, like, the characters enough, like, to, like, I know you said you didn't watch it, but do you have any idea of, like, any of the characters?
Just the main ones that are still there. I don't know anything about the show at all. I wasn't in Kai, so I don't know anything about that one either, other than they took the fillers out.
Oh, yeah, Kai's just essentially, they took the fillers out. That's pretty much all it is.
So I wouldn't be able to answer any question. I just haven't, you know, I'm just now getting through maybe half of Dragon Ball.
I get it. I wanted to ask you beforehand because I was going to ask you the question, which I think is creative, but you don't really have an idea of who the characters are. I would have asked you, like, if you could have played any of the characters, regardless of just like totally forgetting about, oh, I'm replacing this person's job, leaving that aside, like, who would that have been? But if you don't know any of the characters, then I get that's kind of hard.
I mean, maybe a new one that they were auditioning for years ago would have liked to have tried maybe for Caulifla. Is that how you say it? Caulifla?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Maybe that one. And then I tried out for is it Xeno? Or
wait, you tried out for Caulifla and Zeno?
I don't. Well, I know one of the characters is the little guy that's like, it looks kind of like a robot. Is it
Grand Zeno?
Yeah, I tried out for Zeno.
Oh,
I should have done that. Yeah, I would have liked to go for those.
Yeah, the Zeno's like super, like probably the most kid voice you'll ever hear. So
yeah,
I was
very high pitched little child, like toddler voice or whatever I could come up with for that.
That's funny. Yeah, that's like the overseer of everything. No, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. As far as I will say this, I was shocked, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was shocked that you were not Goten. Shocked.
Oh, Goten. Yeah, I've been asked that. And I think, again, it would just be too hard to differentiate young Goku, and then young Goten. I don't even think I auditioned for it. I didn't even audition for it. I think they wanted somebody completely different for that role, and it was Kara Edwards, who's also the voice of Videl.
Hey, great job, because, you know, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I was just surprised. I mean, obviously, I think that's one thing where you can't watch Dragon Ball and say, man, they got this voice wrong. It just feels like everybody is like how they're supposed to be all throughout.
Pretty good casting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I love to voice completely unique and different characters because it challenges my abilities and it pushes me. So I would always be game for jumping in a studio and then, hey, this is a so-and-so, or this is a cab driver, or this is a woman screaming frantically, or this is some kind of weird, villainous animal that doesn't exist in our realm. Like a monster. I mean, like, or a witch or something. I'm always up for like throwing something out there, and it won't sound like Gohan or Goku. In fact, that's what I think I'd be up for that. Like if there was something like maybe something in development, and then they needed a voice, like KO from OKKO. That's an offshoot of Goku for sure. I mean, the director's a huge Dragon Ball fan, and they brought me out there in, like, I don't know, 2012, 13, 14. And then as it got closer to, kind of closer to COVID, like quite a bit before COVID. They didn't have the budget to fly me to LA every time to record, because for that one, like I said, you record all together in different cubicles with a different microphone, and you follow each other, and then it's animated after the fact. So
okay,
but that was very, very much inspired by the character of Goku, but it wasn't an anime. So I don't know. I mean, it's
that's
different.
cool.
But I mean, I'm always like, people are like, oh my gosh, you're so busy. I don't feel like I'm too busy. Like for me, I would be working every day if I could. Like I would be creating. I would be in the studio. Maybe a day off here and there, of course, or a travel day, whatever. But like, I would like to be voicing or singing jingles and parodies like every day, writing parodies. I mean, there's tons of stuff I still want to do. And people are like, gosh, you're so busy, you're never home. I'm like, dude, I'm home all week. Like, to me, that's all week. That's Monday through Thursday. I'm home every week, and unless it's a longer trip or it's a longer event. I mean, I got people to watch my house. I got people to watch my cat. I got people to watch my dog. I mean, like, I've got it all set up. I'm grooving. It's like, I can always make time for more work. I got a home studio now, Dan's my director / technical advisor. He does all of my videos and promotions and editing the videos and adding the music beds and having the characters swirl in and out and adding the website for wherever I'm going to be. And then we just make them fun and exciting. And there's just, I'm always ready for new projects, especially if it challenges me and it's nothing like I've done before. I mean, that would be awesome. Like maybe a female character.
I think it'd be really cool and I mean, I don't know. People are so like undecided whether or not we're going to get another super season. But it'd be really cool. Right. It would be really cool to see you in the next season in some capacity. Everyone would want that.
I think I just need to get with the directors and say, hey, if you want to throw me in some background characters, let me throw some stuff at you, because it would not sound anything like Goku or Gohan, or like another anime, or maybe a female character in an anime. Like I would love to do something like that because it's completely different.
Yeah.
And it would showcase a different ability, a different range, a different style. It'd be interesting to see if the fans recognize my voice, or because I know when it got put in the trailer, that's when everybody that watched it growing up was like, I know that voice.
Yes.
And I still couldn't say anything. That was before the announcement. So I couldn't say anything, and I was just like, the
pause and then let's go, and then everyone went crazy.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it leaked, but hey, if you know. I mean, it's just, there were rumors, already. It's like, you bringing back Stephanie for this role, and I'm glad they did, and then get all that nostalgia going and all the feels,
Absolutely.
Childhood memories. It's important. It's the stuff we remember. It's the stuff we grew up on, and we all have something we geek out about. It's just a matter of what it is. I geeked out about disco music, 80s music. I mean, that was my thing, and those things shape who you are. Pop culture's huge. I see it now more than ever when I go to these events. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. This is great. This is a place to come together and geek out and nerd out about anything. And it's okay. You can go back to being 6 years old, and you can act that way, and it's acceptable and welcomed,
Hey, it's a nerd's world now, because I mean, now it's like, I mean, you'd get bullied for being a fan of Dragon Ball or being a fan of, the MCU. Oh, not the MCU, but Marvel. And now you got, I mean,
DC
what
and all that, yeah,
like all that stuff and all the movies and all the money they make with that, and then you have all these video games, and it's like, I mean, Dragon Ball makes the best fighting games. So right. It's all out there. Like it's all common. Yeah. Like
we had the Incredible Hulk. We had Dukes of Hazzard. We had, when I was a kid, because I had 2 stepbrothers and a brother. I was the only girl. And then we would watch Superman, the original Christopher Reeves Superman, my Superman. What else? I mean, we had Wonder Woman on TV with Linda Carter. We had the Bionic Man, the Bionic Woman, $6 Million Man. I mean, I'm just like, Chips with Paunch, the guys, the cops on the bikes, and you know that's what we were surrounded by at such an impressionable age, and that's what's different for everybody. So that's why it's just great they have these gatherings and these events and these, some big, some small. I mean, they're great to bring the family and just wander around, support each other's art. Like there's all these artists that are drawing, and no AI allowed, by the way.
Hey,
And now
absolutely.
gotten friends to be friends with them at these conventions, and then I therefore have I'm in contact with them, or I might have their number or their text and say, hey, I have an idea for a new print. What about this with the cape and it's flying in the wind, or whatever it is, and I can just put that out there and commission them to get me more work, gets them out there, promote each other, and that's what it's all about. Nobody gets anywhere by themselves, and we all have help. We all have and we all have haters that try to take us down. Well, you learn from that too. It may be painful, but you learn a lot when you're in pain. Being the new kid so many times. I think I moved like 9 times before I was 16.
Oh man.
It was crazy. Yeah. Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, back to Texas. I've lived most of my life in Texas, and I am definitely adopted Texas. That's my state. It's huge. Everything's huge. Everything's ginormous. And we just got snow.
Wow.
We just got 5.5 inches of snow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
We have snow here.
Yeah.
I'm in New York, so you always get snow here. And
what part of New York?
I'm right by Saratoga, if you know.
Oh, I love it. It's upstate.
Yes.
Gorgeous. I love it up there. I haven't been very often, but I want to come back. So I'll let you know.
Let me know when you're back. I'd like to meet you.
Yeah, it'd be great. The face to a name and face to face. I'll definitely keep you posted on all of that.
Absolutely. So one final question before we wrap this thing up. What is the kind of craziest story you have that you can tell from doing everything that you've done in this industry?
Ooh, that's a big one. I mean, for the singing career, it's got to have been the big Mardi Gras shows that we would do at the Superdome in New Orleans.
That's cool.
Opening up for Huey Lewis, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Vanessa Williams, the Four Tops, the Spinners, the Coasters, the Drifters, a lot of oldies bands. There were just big names, Harry Connick Jr., Percy Sledge, what's Johnny Rivers, or gosh, get some of these confused, Chubby Checker, meeting the celebrities and getting to because we were in the band, we would sometimes get a picture with them, or, before cell phones, we had the little snippy, so meeting the famous people and really getting to hang out there were so many amazing moments in the singing career, for sure. And then like I said, the Windstar Senior Breakfast Band, the High Rollers. There's some video on my website with a little bit of a snippet video of us performing live. And then for the voice acting was definitely the whole the whole production of taking a Japanese anime theme, getting it translated, and then making it into a lyrical English song conveying the same meaning. I wasn't even paid for that. That was something I did. I was invited in to do. So I kind of figured out that that's kind of more like an intern thing. But having a hand in that, and then getting to direct singers and kind of help cast and bring in talent for that was a highlight. And then obviously seeing the reactions of a lot of the fans face to face at the Comic-Cons. And then some of them had been, like I said, bullied, or they'd gone through a hard time, and that Dragon Ball Z or the Cell Saga or Gohan got them through these hard times, because I can relate to that. We've all been a kid. We've all been through hard times, and just to feel that what I did, even if it's not recently, that it made such a big impact for a positive outcome for them. And being such a motherly person like my mom, it's like a way that I can feel like I'm nurturing the world in a way through these fans, which are mostly, a good 20 plus years younger than I am. So,
yeah.
And then meeting their kids, and then they'll hand them over and I get to hold the babies, and they're dressed up like Goku and Gohan, and they're wearing their little onesie with the, the insignia, or they got their little power pole. I mean, they're just treasured moments, all of them.
No, that's awesome. Hey, it's been great having you, and I hope everybody enjoyed this because, man, Stephanie, really
Yeah.
appreciate your time. I know you are busy, and I know we've been trying to get this thing going, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. So, guys, hope
Yeah.
you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna have all of your stuff posted below in the I won't say comment section, the description, Stephanie, so they can check out your website, socials, all
Okay.
that good stuff,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
as well as the content. Because for people who are just watching this and never watched Dragon Ball before, well, you should definitely check it out. But that's
Maybe
gonna
they'll,
do it.
yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
they'll
Oh,
start
sorry. What
watching
were you saying?
No, I was just saying maybe it'll get them started, or they might, be like, hey, I should check that one out, or I should binge watch this one or that one, and maybe it'll get them started, and then they'll kind of see how it's all branching out, and it's one of the gateway animes that has a lot of history and a lot of popularity out there, and but it's been great, and I appreciate you reaching out or me reaching out. I don't even know how this happened because I do a lot of these. I don't know how, but I'm grateful for it, and I hope that whoever's watching enjoyed it and got some insight and some encouragement to follow your dreams.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we appreciate you guys watching. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. She is Stephanie Nadolny. And this has been episode 5 of The Lounge. I'll see you guys soon.